In the headlines this evening, the U.S. and China reaffirmed their position on North Korea's nuclear ambitions. They also agreed to cut greenhouse gas emissions drastically by 2030. In what will be a historic touchdown, if successful, a Comet lander starts descending from its mothership, Rosetta. And the pace of on-year job growth hits the slowest in 4 months here in Korea. The actual unemployment rate could be worse than published figures. Stay tuned for these stories and more on Early Edition at 6. It's 6 in the evening on Wednesday, November 12th here in Korea, brought to you live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. President Park Geun-hye has arrived in Myanmar to attend this year's ASEAN+3 and East Asia summits.
That's right. The Korean leader will take part in discussions on a range of global issues there, such as the Ebola outbreak and the threats posed by Islamic State militants in the Middle East. Now, President Park will also have a chance to promote her unification drive for the two Koreas and her North Korea policies, as well as those related to boosting ties with ASEAN member countries ahead of next month's ASEAN-Korea commemorative summit in Korea's southern city of Busan.
And that's not all. On the sidelines of the global summit, she is scheduled to hold bilateral meetings with her counterparts from India and New Zealand.
Now, leaders from the world's two biggest economies, the United States and China, met for bilateral talks in Beijing on this Wednesday.
That's right. President Xi Jinping called for a new model of their relationship, while President Barack Obama said he appreciated their honest and constructive dialogue. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
In his bilateral meeting with U.S. President Barack Obama on Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed the importance of a new model for the relationship between the two world powers.
The establishment of a new model for the relationship between China and the U.S. is in line with the basic interests of the people from both our countries, and that it can also help protect the peace, stability, and prosperity of the Asia-Pacific region and the world.
At the meeting, China and the United States agreed on new targets for greenhouse gas emissions. President Obama set a new goal of reducing U.S. levels from between 26% to 28% by 2025, compared with 2005 levels. President Xi did not set a specific target, but said emissions would peak by 2030, marking the first time that China, the world's biggest polluter, set an approximate date for such a goal. The two leaders also agreed on reducing the possibility of military clashes in the air and sea. President Obama said despite their differences, he was encouraged by the honest and constructive dialogue he had with his Chinese counterpart.
But what I've been very encouraged by is your willingness, Mr. President, to engage in an honest and constructive dialogue around those differences and ensuring that we manage them in a peaceful and effective way.
Noting that this year marks the 35th year of diplomatic relations between the world's two largest economies, President Xi said China was willing to further expand cooperation with the U.S. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
So the APEC summit officially came to an end on Tuesday.
That's right. One of the major outcomes of this year's meeting, at least for China, was garnering support for building a regional trade bloc called the FTAAP.
And our Connie Kim has more on that story.
At the close of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Beijing, leaders largely agreed on crafting a roadmap for China's vision to create a regional trade bloc. The Free Trade Area of the Asia-Pacific, or FTAAP, if seen through, would connect the 21 APEC member countries, which account for more than 50% of global gross domestic product and nearly half of world trade. Although currently nothing more than a topic of study, Chinese President Xi Jinping says the FTAAP would create the economic integration needed to ensure Asia's long-term growth.
We've reached a consensus that the strengthening of infrastructure and connectivity construction will open up new resources, promote economic development in the Asia-Pacific region, and improve competitiveness.
The FTAAP is seen as an attempt by Beijing to rival the U.S.-led Trans-Pacific Partnership, a similar trade bloc that excludes China and Russia. Forbes says China stands to lose $1 billion per year in exports if the TPP goes into effect. While the world's two largest economies are promoting competing trade blocs, Washington and Beijing did see eye to eye on bilateral economic cooperation in talks at the APEC summit. They agreed to cut tariffs on about 200 technology products, which will cut prices of semiconductors and GPS devices, more evidence that while China and the United States are rivals on the global stage, they're also partners who are very much intertwined economically. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
So let's delve a little deeper into this topic. This year's APEC summit in Beijing. We have an expert joining us, don't we?
Yes, we have Professor Choy of Incheon National University joining us on the line. Thank you for your time today, Professor.
Hello there. Professor Lee, are you there?
Maybe we have a bad connection. Perhaps we'll have to move to our next topic and then come back to Professor Lee when we have a better connection.
That's right.
Moving on to other stories, with the latest free trade agreement with China, Korea now has signed free trade pacts with more than 50 countries.
That's right. Prices of imported products have come down, but some items have not seen much or any reduction at all despite tariff reductions. Our Song Ji-sun has the details.
Korea's FTA history dates back more than a decade when the country signed its first deal with Chile in 2002. Since then, the export-driven Asian economy has aggressively pushed for free trade pacts to become the first among the world's top 10 trading nations to have such deals with the US, the European Union, and China. The latest edition gives Korean consumers tariff-free access to products from areas that represent 73% of the world's GDP. Only Chile and Peru have wider free trade territories. Korean consumers can enjoy imported products at lower costs, with fruits like cherries becoming much more affordable. Disappointing news for fashionistas, however, as the price of luxury goods hasn't come down by much, even after free trade agreements came into effect. Luxury goods producers hiked prices, and the Korean government levied additional individual consumption taxes on top-end handbags. The price of U.S. beef has also gone up as global demand for American beef soared in recent years. When the Korea-China FTA goes into effect, Korean consumers will pay less for Chinese electronics products with a tariff reduction of 8%. A 30% tariff for Chinese mangoes and beer will also be removed gradually over the next 20 years. But it may take quite a while for consumers to feel the effects in their everyday lives, as Seoul and Beijing have yet to fine-tune the minor details, and parliamentary ratification in Korea could take months or even years. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's import prices dropped for the 8th straight month in October. The Bank of Korea attributes the fall not to the FTAs, though, but to slumping global oil prices. This is the first time that the prices have been on a downward trend for 8 consecutive months in some 13 years. The central bank says import prices went down 0.9% last month from September as crude oil prices dropped by more than 10% during this period. Now, when compared to a year earlier, figures fell more than 7%, marking the 26th straight month of decline on a year-on-year basis. Export prices, however, rose 0.7% in October from a month earlier due to the weakened local currency against the US dollar.
Hyundai Motor and its affiliate Kia Motors laid out a roadmap on Wednesday to becoming the world's second leading producer of environment-friendly cars by the year 2020. They are currently number 5 in the global market. And to make the jump, the company says it will invest more in hydrogen fuel cell technology and expand the number of its eco-friendly automobiles to 22 models from the current 7. They're also releasing a new hybrid electric model next year to compete against Toyota's much-established Prius. Well, long gone are the days when you had to make the long trip to the bank for simple transactions. At least that's the case here in Korea. And now, local banks as well as app developers are planning on providing even more financial services on smartphones. Shin Se-min tells us more.
Banking through smartphones is becoming easier and more common. What started with simple transactions is now shifting to more complex ones, like applying for mortgage loans. Uribank is hoping to release a product early next year that would let users submit essential information for such loans through a smartphone app. The information would then be looked over and evaluated by a bank representative. It's just one example of businesses using smartphones to tap into the financial services market. This week, mobile messaging service Daum Kakao rolled out Bank Wallet Kakao, a service that allows users to transfer money to friends much like they would send a text message. It allows users to wire up to 100,000 won, or roughly $90 per day, without having to know the recipient's account information. Subscribers can even deposit and withdraw cash from some 75,000 automated teller machines just through a few taps of the smartphone.
Still, there are some risks. Currently, the roles that IT corporations and banking institutions are playing has not been revealed. So it's possible that improper management or other problems could arise. Customers need more clarification as what they are doing involves sensitive financial information.
Providing greater security will be key to expanding the market even further, especially with concerns still present after the personal data of at least 20 million bank and credit card users in Korea was leaked earlier this year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Korea's unemployment rate officially stands at 3.2%, which would be the envy of many countries around the world. But the new job figures show that the reality is much, much different. Our Hwang Ji-hye has more.
This English academy in Korea is packed with people who are preparing to find a job. But no matter how desperately they study, they're not categorized as unemployed in the country's jobs data. Statistics Korea, which compiles the data, only counts those who don't have a job despite their efforts to get one, and that means whether they have actually filled out applications in the past 4 weeks. So the agency released a so-called real unemployment rate starting this month based on the new standards of the International Labor Organization. The actual jobless rate that includes those who are preparing to get a job, are underemployed, or are discouraged from finding a job stood at over 10% in October. That is up around 7 percentage points from the official unemployment rate. Pundits have been critical of the official jobs figure, saying it's a too narrow definition to reflect the true state of unemployment. With the extra data that offers a full picture of the country's job market, experts point to the need of government policies to support women and the younger generation in the job market. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Not a documentary, but a fictional film on the highly sensitive issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Asian women has opened at select cinemas across Korea. Our cultural correspondent Park Geun-hye tells us more about the movie.
The film recounts the story of a victim of Japan's wartime system of sex slavery who was taken to a military brothel in China when she was a teenager. Although documentaries and animations have been made about this issue in Korea in the past, this is the first fictional film released on the topic. And while employing elements of mystery, the film is based on testimonies given by the victims. The film's director Chu Sang-ruk says he made the film with a sense of urgency as the victims are succumbing to old age.
More than 1,000 films have been made about the Holocaust, and although Japan's sex slavery system is another historic tragedy, I found it odd that not even one fictional film has been made on the issue.
Due to the film's intense subject matter, it was hard to raise funds for its production. The film's budget was less than $350,000, which came partly from the Korean Film Council, crowdfunding by the public, and a private donation by the head of the production company. All of the actors in the film waived their usual fees, appearing in the picture for free. The director hopes the film can deliver a powerful message to viewers.
It's about how history affects the present and shows us what lessons can be learned from the past. I think we need to remember this awful tragedy rather than shutting our eyes to the issue. We have a responsibility to tell the story to our future generations to ensure such awful things never happen again.
Tuning Fork will open in China early next year. And that's not all. 2 more films on the issue are also set to hit the big screen soon. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories. Scientists at the European Space Agency may make history Wednesday, Central European time, by landing a probe on a comet.
That's right. Whether the mission is successful or not will be known in about 6 hours' time. If successful, it will mark an aerospace milestone.
And our Son Jung-in has this report.
Today may be the most pressing moment for scientists at the European Space Agency as they make final preparations for a groundbreaking comet landing. After traveling 6 billion kilometers since it was sent into space 10 years ago, the agency's 100-kilogram lander Philae will finally be separated from its mothership Rosetta and sent to the surface of a comet. The chaser became the first ever spacecraft to catch up with the comet in August and has been orbiting the comet called Churyumov-Gerasimenko for the past 3 months. If the landing is successful, the probe will accompany the comet on its trip around the sun with the aim of finding answers about the solar system and the origins of life. However, scientists say it's too soon to pop the champagne, as the flying and landing the probe is a very complicated process. The mission leader at the Operations Center hopes the probe, if everything goes to plan, will help scientists learn more about the composition of comets.
Of course, we fly Rosetta to learn everything about comets. For example, what are they made of? What kind of water is on the comets? Is it the same type of water that we find on Earth?
It will take Philae about 7 hours from the moment it's released from Rosetta to cover the roughly 20 kilometers to land on the comet. The touchdown is expected to occur 30 minutes past midnight on Thursday, Korea time. Given that it takes around half an hour for radio signals to reach Earth, the mission's success or failure will only be able to be confirmed at 1 a.m. Thursday. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
All right, so let's try to connect to our expert again to talk about this year's APEC summit in Beijing.
Hopefully, Professor Yo Cho is able to pick up the phone this time. Professor Yi, can you hear us this time?
Hello, I can hear you.
That's great. Well, let's start with the many bilateral summits that were held on the sidelines of the APEC summit. I mean, they were all important, but which one, in your opinion, was the most noteworthy?
I think probably China and Japan summit meeting was one of the most significant meeting at the APEC. Because China-Japan relations has been strained for the last 3 years because of the island issue, Diaoyidao and Senkaku island issue. They agreed to the issue. They have different views on the island issue, and also they agreed see the history as it was, and let's move forward for the future. And there was the agreement made between 2 countries, and also this summit meeting is important because 2 countries agreed to return their bilateral relations to a normal process.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the facial expression of Chinese President Xi Jinping, though, when he welcomed Shinzo Abe, was enough to make headlines. What's going on there?
The pictures published. Their handshaking pictures looks. To us, both leaders are not very comfortable, and a kind of stiff expressions we can see. Probably this shows bilateral relationship has been not so good for last 3 years. Nevertheless, that's a good step forward to normalize the relationship between China and Japan.
We're talking about pros wearing their emotions in their faces, so it just shows what the relationship is right now, rather sour. But moving on to U.S.-Korea relations, when President Park Geun-hye and U.S. President Barack Obama met, it seemed like they did not have exactly a great rapport to brag about. There were reports that it was only 20 minutes long, and they weren't sure if the meeting was going to take place in the first place.
Until the last minute, right?
You are talking about the Korea-U.S. summit meeting, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right. I mean, I don't think the length, the times, how long they talked is not that important. I'm not sure exactly how long both presidents talked together, but they discussed about North Korean denuclearization issue. And also, it is reported that the Barack Obama, President Obama, explained what happened about the release of 2 Americans by North Korea. And also, it is known that both presidents discussed the development of the relationship between U.S. and North Korea. And very important issues they discussed. Even it is not yet known what kind of detailed agreement reached between 2 presidents yet. But I think both presidents has very meaningful talks about the issues.
So in a bigger picture, how will this year's APEC meeting change the dynamics in terms of diplomacy in the Northeast Asian region?
Well, as I talked already, China and Japan, the relationship has been so bad for the last 3 years, but they began to warm up. In other words, they started talks. So China-Japan relations probably will get better than before. And also, Korea and Japan relations has been strained because of Japan's wartime past, and also the comfort women issue, history issue, and Chinese movement toward the more right-wing side. Amending, the peace constitution and so on. Nevertheless, our President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Abe, they talked at dinner meeting, and they agreed, let's normalize the bilateral relationship. That's a very important step forward. Also, China and U.S., even though they have some tensions on the issues, especially on the issue of a territorial dispute in South China Sea and East China Sea. Nevertheless, U.S. and China, they had very diplomatic and impressive talks. Especially the U.S. suggested U.S. relationship with China should move forward a new level, even though what that new level implies has not known yet. So these are all bilateral and multilateral, diplomatic talks improves the stability of the Northeast Asian region, and also I believe these new dynamics will contribute to the more stability of the Northeast Asian region.
Now we can expect U.S. and China to team up and maybe put further pressure in Pyongyang. How will this affect the inter-Korean relations?
Well, the cooperation between China and U.S. is very important to make better the inter-Korean relations. If China and U.S. relationship is in the situation of a conflict or dispute, in our perspective, it will be difficult to handle North Korea and the relationship with North Korea. So, in other words, the China and U.S. better cooperative relationship is good. Is provide better circumstances for inter-Korean relations. That's how I think.
All right, Professor Eo Choi, unfortunately, that's all the time we have left for today. Thank you very much, despite the technical difficulties. Thank you very much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.
One-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News. On Early Edition at 6.
I can feel the tension and the anxiety. Tomorrow is going to be a big day for the test takers here in Korea.
That's right. We wish everyone who's taking the exam the best of luck, of course.
And this is the end of our newscast. Have a great start to your day or a safe drive home. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. We'll be back same time tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.